The morning started the way most of mine did. Quiet, practical, and a little rushed. I was standing at the kitchen counter, tying my daughter's shoelaces while the coffee maker hummed behind me. The radio was low. The sky outside our apartment window was still gray, not quite awake yet. My daughter, Lily, was talking about a spelling test she hadn't studied for but wasn't worried about anyway. She never was. I remember thinking that nothing felt urgent. Just another weekday. That changed later when my supervisor closed his office door, slid an envelope across the desk, and said something he had never said to me before. "Don't open this here," he said. "Go home. Take your child. You have one day." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain. He wouldn't meet my eyes for long. And before I could ask anything, he turned away, like the conversation was already over. There was something else too. Something that didn't make sense yet. A detail I wouldn't understand until much later. The envelope was already warm, like it had been held too long. I didn't open it then. I just held it. I'm telling you this calmly now, but at the time, I didn't react the way people expect. I didn't panic. I didn't argue. I nodded once, tucked the envelope into my bag, and walked out of the office the same way I always did. The questions came later. My name is Elena Morales. I was 31 at the time, living in a modest apartment in South Phoenix with my daughter. I worked as an administrative coordinator at a private investment firm downtown. Mid-level, background work, nothing glamorous. I handled scheduling, transfers, internal reviews, paperwork that moved quietly from one desk to another. The job paid steadily. That mattered more than titles. Lily's father had been gone for years. No drama, just absence. So our life was built on routines, early mornings, packed lunches, notes folded into backpacks, predictable things, safe things. That morning, I'd slipped a note into Lily's lunchbox like always. A small drawing of a sun and the words, "Have a good day." She smiled when she found it. That mattered too. The drive to work had been normal. Traffic, podcasts, red lights that lasted too long. I remember noticing the heat already rising off the pavement and thinking summer was going to be worse than usual. At the office, the atmosphere felt muted. Phones rang, but quieter. People spoke without lingering. A few doors were closed that were usually open. I noticed two men near the elevators I didn't recognize. Suits that looked new, posture too alert for employees. I clocked it, but I didn't dwell on it. At exactly 9:12 a.m., my desk phone rang. It was my supervisor's assistant. Her voice was tight, controlled. "Elena, he needs to see you now." No reason given, no small talk. The walk down the hall felt longer than usual. The carpet muffled my steps. I remember the faint smell of cleaning solution and the hum of the air conditioning. Ordinary things, anchoring things. When I stepped into his office, he was standing by the window with his back to me. He didn't turn around right away. That was new. "Close the door," he said. I did. That's when he finally faced me. And that's when I saw it. Not anger, not irritation, fear. He opened his desk drawer, took out a sealed envelope, and placed it between us. "Whatever happens next," he said quietly, "you need to listen carefully, and you need to leave." He pushed the envelope closer. My name was written on it in black ink. Neat. Deliberate. I didn't reach for it yet. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about work, and it wasn't a warning the way companies usually give them. It was something else. He leaned in slightly, lowered his voice, and said the words that stayed with me long after I left the building. "Go home. Pack light. Take your daughter. And don't trust anyone who asks questions." Then he straightened up, turned back toward the window, and said nothing more. I stood there for a few seconds, waiting for him to continue. He didn't. So I picked up the envelope, walked out of the office, and rode the elevator down in silence. Outside, the city sounded the same as it always had, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. I didn't open the envelope yet. I just got in my car and drove, and I waited. I didn't go straight home. I drove past my usual turn and kept going for 3 more blocks before pulling into a grocery store parking lot. I parked under a sun-faded tree and shut off the engine. The car ticked as it cooled. My hands stayed on the steering wheel longer than necessary. I took the envelope out of my bag and rested it on my lap. It was thick, heavier than paper alone. No return address, no logo. Just my name, written carefully, like someone wanted to be sure there was no mistake. I still didn't open it. Instead, I watched people move in and out of the store. A woman loading bottled water into her trunk. A man arguing quietly on his phone. A kid dragging his feet behind a cart. Life continuing at its usual pace, unaware it was being measured against a deadline I didn't understand yet. My supervisor had never spoken to me like that before. He was precise, controlled, not cruel, but distant. The kind of person who corrected errors without raising his voice and never explained more than necessary. Fear didn't belong on his face. After a few minutes, I started the car again and drove toward Lily's school. It was earlier than pickup, but I needed to see her. Not because I thought something had happened, because I needed to confirm that the world was still intact in at least one place. The school office smelled like paper and disinfectant. The secretary recognized me and smiled. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and I meant that I wanted it to be true. Lily was in class, bent over a worksheet, her braids slipping loose at the collar. She looked up when she saw me and smiled, surprised but not worried. I didn't take her out early. Not yet. I just waved, told her I'd see her later, and left. That helped more than I expected. Back in the car, my phone buzzed. A message from work, then another. Calendar updates, a meeting canceled, no explanation. I didn't respond. I drove home. The apartment felt the same as it had that morning. Shoes by the door, a cup in the sink. Lily's drawing taped crookedly to the fridge. I set my bag down, locked the door, then checked it again. Out of habit, I told myself. I stood at the kitchen table and finally opened the envelope. Inside were 4 things. A one-way plane ticket leaving that night. A small prepaid phone, still sealed. A folded piece of paper, and a photograph. The photo was on top. It was Lily. She was standing near the school fence, backpack on, looking off to the side. The angle was wrong, too close, too intentional. I recognized her jacket. I recognized the morning. I sat down slowly. The paper underneath was handwritten. Short sentences. No greeting. You were observed accessing restricted material. You were not meant to notice it. This is your window to leave safely. If you remain after midnight, that option disappears. No signature. The ticket was for a city I'd never been to. The departure time was early evening, close enough that every hour mattered. I picked up the prepaid phone last. It was heavier than my regular one. When I turned it on, the screen lit immediately. No setup, no menus, one contact, no name, just a number. I set the phone face down. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. What I felt was narrower than fear, more practical, like my mind had shifted into a different mode, one that counted time instead of feelings. I thought about what I'd touched at work. 2 days earlier, I'd processed a dormant account transfer. Large, out of pattern. I'd flagged it, asked for confirmation, received a brief reply telling me to proceed and document nothing further. At the time, it felt wrong in a way paperwork sometimes does. Clean on the surface, heavy underneath. I approved it anyway. Now I stood up and walked through the apartment, noticing details I'd never cataloged before. The back stairwell door, the view from the kitchen window, which neighbors were home during the day. I packed nothing yet. I waited for Lily to come home. When she did, she dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes, and asked if we could have breakfast for dinner. I said yes. She smiled. That mattered. As she ate, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. The prepaid phone vibrated once on the table. No sound, just movement. I looked at it, then at Lily, and I realized something quietly, without drama. Whatever this was, it had already started. I put the phone back down, and I waited. I waited until Lily was asleep before I moved. Her door was cracked open the way she liked it. The hallway light spilled across the floor, soft and familiar. I stood there for a moment longer than necessary, listening to her breathing even out. When I was sure she was asleep, I closed my own bedroom door and sat at the small desk by the window. That was when I turned the prepaid phone back on. It lit immediately, no delay. A single message appeared on the screen. Do not use your personal phone. You are being monitored through standard networks. This device is isolated. I read it twice. Then another message followed. You have access to more than you realize. Your activity log confirms it. That line stayed with me. Activity log. At work, every action left a record. Timestamps, access trails, internal permissions. I knew how those systems worked because I helped maintain the admin side of them. Not the content, but the structure. I set my personal phone on the desk, powered it down, and slid it into a drawer. Then I thought in steps. Step 1. Keep Lily unaware. Step 2. Control what I touch and what touches me. Step 3. Confirm what they think I know. I didn't respond to the message yet. Instead, I opened my laptop, not the work one, but my old personal machine. It was slower, offline by default. I didn't connect it to the internet. I didn't need to. I opened the folder where I kept archived PDFs from past internal procedures, boring things, access hierarchies, audit language, the way permissions were escalated quietly, without notice, if the right boxes were checked. That's when I saw it. 2 days ago, when I'd approved that transfer, my credentials had been temporarily elevated. Not enough to trigger an alert, but enough to see a routing name that wasn't meant to be visible at my level. I hadn't noticed it consciously at the time, but the system had. The prepaid phone vibrated again. You saw the alias. That makes you traceable. Alias, not a person, not a company, a placeholder name, used when the real one was buried deeper. I finally typed back. I didn't save anything. The reply came almost immediately. You didn't need to. The record exists because you exist. That was the first moment something shifted. They weren't accusing me of stealing data. They were reacting to the fact that I had touched it at all. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair. The fear didn't spike. It flattened. Became something usable. If my supervisor had handed me that envelope knowing all this, then he hadn't been warning me out of panic. He'd been buying time. I packed quietly after that. 1 bag for Lily, 1 for me, documents, cash, nothing sentimental, nothing traceable. I chose clothes that didn't stand out, shoes I could walk in. At 6:04 p.m., the prepaid phone rang. I answered without speaking. You're behind schedule, a woman's voice said. Calm, unrushed. That's understandable. Who are you? I asked. That won't help you yet, she replied. What will help is this. Do not exit your building through the front. I didn't respond. There is a vehicle idling across the street, she continued. It's not for you, but it's watching for patterns. I moved to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to see. A dark sedan, engine running. No one inside that I could see. How do you know where I am? I asked. You updated your address 3 years ago when you applied for child tax assistance, she said. Different systems talk to each other when someone listens carefully. I let that settle. Leave through the rear stairwell in 12 minutes, she said. Take only what you can carry. And Elena, don't look back if someone calls your name. The line went dead. I stood there for a moment, phone still to my ear. Then I went to Lily's room and woke her gently. I told her we were going on a short trip. I didn't say where. I didn't say why. She nodded sleepily and hugged her backpack when I handed it to her. At exactly 12 minutes past, I turned off the lights, opened the back stairwell door, and stepped into the dim concrete hallway with my daughter's hand in mine. As the door closed behind us, my prepaid phone buzzed once more. "Good," the message read. "Now don't stop." We reached the car without speaking. I buckled Lily in, and just before I got into the driver's seat, I heard a voice somewhere above us, sharp and efficient. "Movement confirmed." I didn't look up. I got in the car, started the engine, and pulled away slowly, like nothing unusual was happening at all. And that's when I understood. This wasn't about running. It was about timing. And someone had decided I was finally ready to keep up. I didn't drive straight to the airport. That would have been predictable. Instead, I merged onto the freeway, then exited again 2 ramps later. I stopped at a gas station, used cash, and went inside long enough to be seen on at least 2 cameras. I bought water, a snack Lily liked, and nothing else. Routine matters. It creates noise. Back in the car, I checked the mirrors. A dark SUV sat near the exit, engine running. It hadn't followed me before. It didn't move when I did. I drove away anyway. Lily hummed softly in the back seat, swinging her feet, asking if we were going somewhere with snow. I told her maybe. I kept my voice even. Calm is contagious. The prepaid phone vibrated again. "You were right not to go directly. They expect fear. Fear creates shortcuts." I didn't respond. I thought in steps again. Step 1. Arrive late enough to break expectation, early enough to still be normal. Step 2. Stay visible in public spaces. Step 3. Let systems, not people, do the work. I drove to the airport parking structure and chose a level near the middle. Not too high, not too close. I parked between 2 cars that looked like rentals. I took Lily's hand and walked at a normal pace. Inside, the airport smelled like coffee and floor cleaner. Announcements echoed overhead. Rolling suitcases clicked across tile. The ordinary weight of public life settled around us. That helped. At security, no one looked at us twice. Lily handed over her backpack proudly. I watched hands, not faces. Watched the way people moved when they were bored instead of alert. On the other side, I checked the departure board. Our flight was still on time. The prepaid phone rang. This time, I answered immediately. "You've done well so far," a man said. His voice was steady, practiced, not comforting, not threatening. "From this point on, listen carefully." "I am," I said. "You accessed a routing alias connected to a protected account," he continued. "That account doesn't belong to a company. It belongs to a public figure." I already knew that much. "What matters," he said, "is that your access created a timestamp that can't be erased without exposing the system that hides it." "So I'm leverage," I said. There was a brief pause. "You're a key," he corrected. "Whether you turn or disappear is still your choice." I watched Lily sit cross-legged near the window, tracing shapes in the condensation on her juice bottle. "What happens if I disappear?" I asked. "Then the structure remains," he said, "and someone else eventually gets hurt." The call ended. No instructions, no reassurance, just information. On the plane, Lily fell asleep before we took off. I watched the lights of the city pull away from the ground and felt something settle into place. Not courage, not resolve, clarity. I wasn't special, I wasn't brave, I was positioned. When we landed, the air was cooler, quieter. The terminal was small enough that movement stood out. I took Lily to the restroom, changed her shirt, adjusted my jacket. Normal things. Anchors. Outside, a pickup truck waited near the curb. No signage, no attempt to blend in. The driver stood beside it, hands visible, posture relaxed but alert. "Elena Morales," he said when he saw me. Not a question. "Yes," I replied. "Get in," he said. "We don't have much time." I hesitated for half a second, not out of fear, out of habit. Then I opened the door. We drove without speaking for several minutes. The road climbed. Trees closed in around us. Lily watched the dark shapes pass by, silent now. "My name is Marcus Hale," he said finally. "Your supervisor contacted me because he couldn't protect you directly anymore." "Is he alive?" I asked. "For now," Marcus said. "And because of that, you are." We turned onto a narrow road and stopped in front of a cabin set back from the trees. Lights were on inside. A generator hummed somewhere behind it. "This is where things change," he said, cutting the engine. "Up until now, you've been reacting." He looked at me. "If you walk inside," he continued, "you stop being a passenger." I looked back at Lily. She squeezed my hand once, trusting, unafraid. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold air. The cabin door closed behind us with a solid sound, and for the first time since that envelope touched my hands, I understood exactly where I was. Not hiding, not running, waiting, on purpose. And that made all the difference. Inside the cabin, the air was warm and dry. Wood smoke, old coffee, paper. The space wasn't large, but it was organized. A long table at the center, laptops stacked neatly, external drives labeled by date, not by name, maps taped to the wall with thin lines drawn between cities. Nothing decorative, everything functional. Marcus set Lily up in a corner with a blanket and a small lamp. She didn't ask questions. She never did when she sensed something mattered. "Sit," he said to me, pulling out a chair at the table. I sat. He slid a laptop toward me and turned it so I could see the screen. A login page. No logos, no branding. Just fields and a blinking cursor. "Before anything else," he said, "I need to know if you're willing to define reality, not argue about it." I nodded once. "Good," he said. "Then this won't take long." He didn't start with accusations or speeches. He started with timestamps. A timeline appeared on the screen. My employee ID, my access window, the moment my permissions elevated without request, the routing alias I'd seen without realizing I'd seen it. "You weren't supposed to notice," he said. "But systems don't care about intention. They care about contact." He clicked again. The alias expanded, not into a name, but into a structure. Shell accounts layered across jurisdictions, transfers that never stayed long enough to be questioned. A pattern built to look like noise. "This is where your supervisor intervened," Marcus said, pointing to a thin gap in the timeline. "He froze the internal review queue, bought hours, not days." "And now?" I asked. "Now they know you're not where you should be," he said, "which means they'll stop asking questions and start closing loops." As if on cue, something hit the cabin wall. Not hard, not loud, just enough to be heard. Marcus didn't move quickly. He stood, walked to the window, and checked the tree line without opening the curtain fully. "Scouting," he said, "not an entry." Lily looked up from her blanket. I met her eyes and shook my head slightly. "Stay still." Marcus returned to the table and sat across from me. "This is the part where people usually panic," he said. "You're not." "I don't see the advantage," I replied. He nodded. "That's because panic wastes time." Another sound outside. Closer this time. Marcus spoke evenly. "Here's how this works. Step 1. We release nothing yet. Silence forces them to compress. Step 2. We let them approach through intermediaries, lawyers, fixers, people who pretend they're protecting you." "And step 3? I asked. "We document every reach," he said, "every attempt to redefine what happened. Then we release everything at once." The laptop chimed softly. An incoming message appeared on the screen. Not to me, to a generic inbox. "We can make this go away." Marcus didn't smile. He didn't react at all. He just turned the laptop slightly so I could read it. "This is your confrontation," he said. "No room, no raised voices, just records." More messages followed. Offers, assurances, a request for a call. I watched them come in, one after another, each one more careful than the last. "They're adjusting," Marcus said. "They think you're scared." Another impact hit the side of the cabin, harder this time, then another. Marcus stood, opened a drawer, and took out a firearm. He checked it, then placed it on the table within reach, not offering it, just acknowledging reality. "If they breach," he said, "you take Lily into the cellar. There's a reinforced hatch behind the pantry." "And you?" I asked. "I slow them down," he said simply. The messages stopped. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the cabin shook, once, violently. Glass cracked somewhere behind us. Lily cried out. I stood immediately and moved to her, crouching low, wrapping her in my arms. "Cellar," Marcus said, calm, firm. I lifted the floor hatch and guided Lily down the ladder. The space below was narrow, concrete-lined, and secure. A single light flickered on as we entered. As I pulled the hatch closed above us, I heard Marcus shout, short commands, not please, then gunfire, controlled, counted. We sat in the dark, Lily's face pressed into my shoulder. I counted my breathing. 1, 2, 3. Then silence. Not relief, just absence. The emergency phone on the wall rang. I answered without speaking. "Elena," my supervisor's voice said, strained, alive. "They found the cabin, but not what matters." I closed my eyes. "You did exactly what you needed to," he continued. "Now you need to decide something." "What?" I asked. "You can disappear," he said, "or you can finish this." I looked at Lily in my arms. Above us, footsteps moved away from the cabin. I already knew my answer. I just needed to say it out loud. "I'm here," I said. "Tell me what's next." There was a pause on the line. Then he said, "Good, because the final file is already with you." I looked around the bunker, at the drives, at the folders, at the blinking cursor on a sealed system, and I understood where the real confrontation was going to happen. Not in this cabin, but everywhere at once. The bunker felt quieter than it should have, not silent, just contained. Like the noise of the world had been filtered out and reduced to a low hum from the generator in the corner. The emergency phone went dead in my hand. No dial tone, no signal. That was intentional. Marcus opened the hatch from above a few minutes later. He was bleeding from his arm, but his movements were steady. He climbed down without urgency and closed the hatch behind him. "They won't be back tonight," he said. "They think they solved the problem." He handed me a small drive. Metal, unmarked. "This is the last piece," he said. "The one your access activated." I took it and didn't plug it in yet. "Before we do anything," I said, "I need to understand the order." Marcus nodded. "Good." He laid everything out plainly. No speeches, no pressure. The drive contained a mirrored ledger, transaction histories tied to shell accounts, policy decisions, donor funnels, and timed legislative actions. Dates aligned, amounts repeated in patterns too consistent to deny. Every movement referenced a public schedule or vote, not allegations, timelines. "This doesn't accuse," Marcus said. "It proves." He powered on the secure laptop and connected it to a satellite uplink. The screen displayed a simple prompt. Global release pending, awaiting confirmation. I sat there for a moment, not thinking about consequences, thinking about sequence. Step 1, verify integrity. Step 2, initiate mirrored distribution. Step 3, remove discretion. I checked hashes, matched them against the printed summaries. Everything aligned. Lily sat beside me, quiet, watching without understanding. I placed a hand on her shoulder. She leaned into it. Marcus looked at me. "Once this starts, there's no undo." "I know," I said. I pressed enter. The screen filled with progress bars, one after another, domestic agencies, international watchdogs, independent media archives, redundant servers across borders that didn't cooperate with requests or favors. No countdown, no drama, just movement. A confirmation alert appeared. Distribution complete. I didn't feel relief right away. What I felt was stillness. The emergency phone rang again. This time, my supervisor's voice was weaker, slower. "You did it," he said. "It's live everywhere." "Are you safe?" I asked. A pause. "I'm done," he replied. "Not regret, acceptance. That was always the trade." I didn't argue. He wouldn't have listened. "Take care of your daughter," he added. That was the only thing that ever mattered. The line went dead. By morning, the world reacted. We didn't watch the news, but alerts came through on Marcus's systems. Detentions at airports, emergency sessions. Statements walked back within hours of being released. Names removed from websites. Accounts frozen. Patterns collapsing under their own weight. Nothing explosive, nothing cinematic. Just systems doing what they do when they can no longer pretend. A federal liaison arrived before noon. Credentials verified through channels Marcus didn't question. They didn't thank me. They didn't apologize. They offered structure, temporary relocation, legal insulation, options. I listened. I asked for everything in writing. I took copies. By evening, Lily and I were in a different place. Smaller, quieter. A room with clean sheets and a kettle on the counter. I made tea. That night, Lily asked one question. "Are we okay now?" "Yes," I said. And this time, it was accurate. I sat at the table after she fell asleep and organized the documents I'd been given. Dates, contacts, boundaries. Everything had a place. The danger hadn't ended, but it had shape now, and shape can be managed. I put the papers away, turned off the light, and let the quiet settle. Tomorrow would come either way, but for the first time in a long while, I knew exactly where I stood, and that was enough. Life didn't reset all at once. It narrowed. The days that followed were quiet by design. New routines replaced old ones. Different grocery store, different school pickup time, a smaller kitchen with fewer drawers to organize. I unpacked only what we needed and left the rest sealed, stacked neatly in a corner. I learned the sound of this place quickly. Wind through dry trees, a train far enough away to be felt, not heard. The low click of the heater at night, predictable sounds. I slept better than I expected. Lily adjusted faster than I did. She learned the walk to school in 3 days. By the end of the week, she had a favorite bench and a teacher who spoke softly. In the mornings, I packed her lunch the same way I always had. Notes folded small, nothing clever. Just reminders that I'd be there at the end of the day. That mattered. I didn't watch the news. I didn't need to. When systems move, you can feel it without looking. Fewer unknown numbers. Fewer pauses in conversations that shouldn't have pauses. Silence returned to its proper place. Once, while sorting paperwork at the table, I found the original envelope folded into the back of my bag. The paper was creased now, the ink slightly faded. It felt smaller than it had that first day. I didn't throw it away. Some warnings aren't meant to be erased. The agency checked in exactly when they said they would. No surprises, no pressure. The terms were clear. So were the boundaries. I agreed to what was necessary and declined what wasn't. They accepted that without argument. Control doesn't need volume. On one quiet afternoon, while Lily was coloring at the table, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. Someone in another city flagged something they weren't supposed to see. They don't know what to do yet. I read it once. Then I put the phone face down. Not every situation needs immediate action. Sometimes the most responsible thing is to wait and let the system reveal its own shape. That evening, I washed dishes slowly. I wiped the counter. I lined Lily's shoes by the door. Ordinary care has weight when you've earned it back. Before bed, Lily asked me if we were staying here for a long time. Yes, I said. Long enough? She nodded, satisfied, and turned over to sleep. After she did, I sat in the quiet and thought about how close ordinary life comes to breaking without anyone noticing. How often people are told to stay quiet, look away, keep moving. Most do. I almost did. This wasn't a story about bravery. It wasn't about exposing anything. It was about attention, about noticing when something doesn't belong and choosing not to ignore it. If you're listening to this and something in your life feels slightly misaligned, I hope you don't rush to fix it or dismiss it. Sometimes the right response is simply to observe, to document, to wait. Clarity arrives when it's ready. If you stayed with me through this, thank you. If you'd like, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps this space stay calm and consistent. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. I read more than you think. 2 stories are waiting for you next. Both quiet, both true in their own way. And if you ever receive an envelope that doesn't feel right, I hope you remember this. Sometimes, the safest move is the most deliberate one.